Hello everyone, this is part 15 of What If Naruto Was Female Orochimaru's Target, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
The scent of ocean air and a decided lack of warmth was how Orochimaru awoke. She was thankful soon it had long since cracked a treatment for morning sickness, or the briny smell of the air would have likely sent her running to the bathroom. She opened her eyes to confirm what she already knew: her husband was not in bed. Slipping on her sky blue yukata, Orochi stepped outside the beachfront bungalow. A quick scan and her husband was located, taking residence in a hammock anchored between two palm trees. She strided over, sand cool under her feet as it hadn't been exposed to the midday sun. Upon arrival she saw he was reading Jiraiya's first book and released a snort in disbelief. Naruto, not remotely offended, just chuckled and assured her it was better than she thought and revealed he'd read the book several times. Is this the plan, Naruto-kun? Reading by the beach like a couple of civilians? She asked as she joined him in the roomy sling. That doesn't sound like the worst thing. Let's do that, just stay here and lounge on the beach. Is that what you want? She asked earnestly as she stared into Naruto's eyes. He shook his head. Some part of me likes the idea of it, but I think I'd be bored before long. Damn my adventuring spirit, he said in mock distress. Adventuring spirit? You know, when I misbehave because of my boredom, no one says I have an adventuring spirit. Should have invested in a ninja publicist, dear. That was my mistake. You neurotypicals are good for something. I'm glad I keep so many around. But I'm special, right? Oh baby, you're my world, Orochi said, but couldn't fight the eye roll as she said it. She was swiftly lifted out of the hammock, Naruto's speed taking her by surprise. She realized where he was headed and felt the need to warn her spouse of his mistake. If you throw me into the sea, I'm going to beat you up. Naruto stopped and gazed into her eyes with uncharacteristic intensity, remaining silent for several seconds before asking, "You promise?" As he beamed. "You have picked up one of Jiraiya's bad habits." She was shaking in his arms from him laughing so hard. "No, I'm decidedly not into getting attacked by irate women. Besides, Anata, I wasn't going to throw you into the water. I was going to ask if you felt up for a little tour, Naruto style." "And what does Naruto style involve?" "A bird's eye view," he answered as they reached the edge of the shore. Naruto flared his chakra and a large clay hawk emerged from underneath the water. "Did you really hide that there just for some big reveal? Pretty fly, right?" he asked with a 1,000-watt smile. "I respect the showmanship," Orochi said before kissing him on the cheek. "Sure. I'd like a tour." "Awesome, Tobio." The two settled on the construct and took off. Waters parted in response to the takeoff speed of the artificial bird. It was not the array of colors in the early morning sky that stood out to Orochi, nor the sea life just peeking at the surface of the water that captured her. It was the exhilaration, the sense of freedom that flying imparted. They weren't going very fast, nor were they incredibly high up, not much above Manda's height. It was the feeling of untetheredness, of flouting the rules of gravity even more than Ninja normally did. That she experienced it with her maelstrom made it all the more enjoyable, and she wondered if learning Bakuten should be her next endeavor, after she mastered that pesky Rasengan. "You two come down for breakfast," Shikamaru said to his son. Shikamaru looked around sarcastically, pointing out that he was clearly alone. Shikamaru crossed his arms at the challenge. In truth, no, he hadn't seen through Shikamaru's genjutsu, it was subtle and very well done. He hadn't needed to. The problem with 16-year-olds is they all assume they were the first 16-year-olds to ever exist, so all their tricks are novel and unknown. Hate to break it to you, son, but you aren't. And even if you were, remember I'm the Junin commander for a reason, fuckhead. Now, come to breakfast so your mom doesn't throw a fit. Said commander closed the door and promptly snickers could be heard. "You just got sonned, Shika. Ha ha ha, laugh it up, trouble. As I recall, you were the one that suggested we come back here," Shikamaru said as he left his bed, headed toward his closet. "Well, I didn't think you'd want to come back to my suite, the one I share with my brothers. Besides, hotel sex makes you feel like a whore." "Excuse me?" Shikamaru asked in shock. "Yay, Like my on-call gigolo just waiting for his mistress to summon him. And it's fun at first, but I worry about my respect for you. You're the most troublesome woman on the planet and it isn't even close. There's no way I'm more troublesome than Orochimaru. You know, the wife of your teammate and best friend. Well, she's Naruto's to deal with, Shika observed. Oh, and I'm yours. To deal with no less. She asked too sweetly. Shika knew the trap he'd sprung, but experience taught him backing out or groveling only made it worse. Yes, to both, he said and got hit with a pillow. Can you please get dressed? Sure. Let me borrow a shirt. No, because every time I let you borrow a shirt it just becomes a new shirt for Temari and I'm running out of shirts. Yes, and as your girlfriend that is my right, so since we're dropping pretenses, gimme a shirt. Shikamaru ran through numerous responses to the absurdity he just bore witness to, but just threw her a black t-shirt instead of engaging. He'd have Naruto tag his clothes so he could just summon them back later. Oh, and Shika, don't get any bright ideas about tagging your clothes just to take them back later. Shikamaru scared at his plan being seen through. But they are my clothes. And I'm borrowing them. But you never give them back. And I won't for as long as I permit you access to my vagina. See how that works? I don't see how, given what you just said. I'm the sex worker in our relationship. Watch it, Nara, I keep a fan on me. Where? Shikamaru asked in genuine surprise. He'd been thorough last night. A girl must have her secrets, Temari said with a laugh as she finished dressing and exited the room, Shikamaru close behind. He really needed to know where that fan could be. The two arrived at the table, taking their seats, Temari greeting Shika's parents as they did. They welcomed her warmly, but Yoshino slapped Shika in the back of the head, much to his dismay. Ow. Why? He asked. I thought you'd have learned to stop misusing your genjutsu skills after that last mishap, Yoshino stated. Mishap? Temari asked as she put some scrambled eggs on her plate. It was nothing, Shikamaru reassured her. And I didn't cast that genjutsu, couldn't if I wanted to. Why not slap Naruto in the back of the head when he gets back? I would if he'd ever come over, but either you don't invite him or he avoids us, Yoshino complained. Me? Dear, he's avoiding me. But she does have a point, you can't just put people under illusions whenever you want. If you think I can cast a village-wide genjutsu, then you have an incredibly erroneous read on my skill set. Wait, the entire village was under a genjutsu. What did you do, Shikamaru Nara? Temari asked in confusion. Well, you want to tell her or should I? Yoshino asked. What a drag. Officially, I didn't do anything. But let's say someone crossed one of my teammates but through a moronic chain of events was spared the beheading that would normally come with such behavior. Well, that person returned to the village right around the time said teammate received some life-altering news. And given the exigencies of my teammate's nature, action was going to be taken. And it was. Allegedly. There's no proof, so this is all hypothetical. Oh. Tell her how Jiraiya-sama stormed onto our compound and how he brought a few dozen Anbu with him, Yoshino added, and Temari looked shocked. Not to mention, you were considering fighting him, like an idiot. Shikamaru. Troublesome. 4 people, covered head to toe in protective wear, work silently. The work wasn't hard, but it was best completed quickly so as to not disturb the habitat. An occasional release of smoke aided in the task. It didn't take long to acquire the raw materials nor to extract what they are really after. They had become practiced hands by this point. The 3 Aberame and the foul-mouthed Uzumaki don't remove their protective wear until they are clear from the apiary. Shino had long toyed with housing a hive. Having a teammate that could grow plant life regardless of the season was an incredible boon to the endeavor. The apiary hadn't grown so large that Shino could start producing honey for commercial uses. It was little more than a hobby, but one he got to share with Tayuya. It may have surprised many that she took to caring for the bees, but Shino knew it was because they didn't know her, only seeing the vulgar way she expressed herself. Even ninja trained to see beyond the surface level often failed to do so, just like with his clan and his Jinchuriki teammate. It was perplexing as Shino didn't understand how you turned off critical thinking skills. How could you be selectively ignorant? It was a maddening conundrum. The hive seemed agitated today, son. You should reassess your safeguards to make sure no threats can infiltrate, Shibi relayed. Shino nodded in affirmation. And Tayuya. Yay. We're having a trivia night again, will you be joining Shino? I don't know, will you fucking cheat again? Tayuya asked. Shino could see the amusement on his father's face even if no one outside of the clan would ever be able to tell. Yes, fine. I'll raid Stump's liquor cabinet. More sake from MT. Myoboku would be nice, Eri said. I'll see. That shitty pervert Jiraiya likes to hoard it when no one's looking. Either way, we look forward to your presence. We will depart for now. Shino's parents head to their dwellings while Tayuya and he head back to the Uzumaki manor. I'm going to figure out how he cheats. I believe, for my father, that is half the fun. Aha. And what's the other half? The alcohol, Shino observed dryly. Yay, you Aberrane can really put it away. You guys should let people know how fun you all are. Many avoid us for whatever reason. If they cannot bother, then we see no reason to change that. It makes the special few we get close to all the more valuable. Tayuya rolled her eyes, but Shino focused more on the small smile she wore. You on duty today? No, Shino answered. You trying to fuck? I am now. Cool, Tayuya said and then disappeared in a shunshin with Shino following behind. Gaara's eyes danced across the page, the language flowery but easily grasped by the Kazekage. Iwa wanted a treaty with Konoha, and only Konoha. It was an agreement of mutual protection and an end to all hostilities between the two powers. It mentioned nothing of Suna, and Gaara didn't have to think long about the potential consequences. Border skirmishes are a coincidental uptick in the number of missions that saw Iwa and Suna ninja standing in opposition. It would only take the wrong, or from Onoki's perspective, right incident to trigger a larger conflict. If Onoki declared war on Suna, Konoha could side with Suna or with Iwa, who was also allied with Kumo. Whatever the just decision was, the smart decision would be to either sit it out or side with Iwa. It would make sense in the short term but would leave Konoha outnumbered when the other two villages turned on them. Another alternative was for Gaara to put his people on high alert and watch as Iwa slowly chipped away at him, while the prolonged period of alertness burned out his ninja and left them in a vulnerable position. There were likely more options, but not for 1 second did Gaara believe Onoki sincerely wanted peace. Once finished, he put the treat request down and looked at Tsunade. What will you do? Exactly what Onoki wants. This was meant to either forestall a preemptive measure on our end or box us in while they readied themselves. I agree. But Onoki is too clever by half, that's his fatal flaw, and I say we exploit it, Tsunade offered. How do you recommend we accomplish that? Well, for one, I think it's time Konoha and Suna took their alliance to a new level. Maybe start conducting joint missions in Wind Country. She asked with a sly grin. That sounds like a wonderful idea, Hokage Dono. Well, thank you, Kazekage Dono. Next, I suggest we add Kiri to our alliance. Gaara contemplated the move. It would mean all 5 of hidden villages would be connected in some form or fashion. That could cool down tensions or push them over the edge entirely. He stared out of the window, the sunny skies of Konoha so different from those of Suna. He wondered what his father would do, what he hoped for in his quiet moments. He'd taken on Suna's harsh climate and made it his personality, believing strength came from it, but there had to be more. He hated Rasa, though his time ruling over the village helped him understand his father more. He couldn't forgive the man for his choices. He could have done better. There were real constraints, but nothing made the former Kazekage terrorize his own son. Suna was strong now, but not because they improved battle effectiveness, not because they invented some new weapon, but through cooperation. War was stagnating. I agree, but it is risky. If Onoki and Darui are set on attacking us, this may only increase their resolve and plan accordingly. Tsunade nodded at the point. It was a risk, but outside of calling Onoki's bluff, they were short on options. The two were deliberate in crafting their proposals, hoping to entice Kiri. Once finished, Gaara departed as he'd be leaving for Suna before nightfall. Now, Tsunade needed the cooperation from the heads of the Uzumaki clan. Some ingenuity with her and Jiraiya's summons, and she was in contact with the newlyweds in short order, though she could hear the annoyance in Orochi's voice. One day, Tsunade. Not even a full day. I know, but this is important. I need you to travel to Kiri. If we can establish an alliance with them, it might make Onoki want to hold to his agreement. Then we should go to Iwa and kidnap his granddaughter, or just kill the old fool. All of which could happen after our allotted time off, Orochi argued. Then you damn us to war. We are already damned to war, at least this way it is on our terms. Tsunade could only sigh. Orochi wasn't wrong, but the last of the Senju had to take the long view. Even if everyone assumed Onoki was lying, If she acted first, then it would be a pretense for no village to ever believe Konoha truly wants peace. She'd cut off each future Hokage at the knees. It was a risk. The logic of the world stated she should simply ready her ninja and storm Iwa or Kumo. Konoha held the advantage, even without Suna's aid. But it would end the wall of fire for generations and Konoha would be just another ninja village. I need you to do this for me, even if you don't agree. Fine, but we will speak more about this upon my return, Orochi promised. I'm sure we will. Now put Naruto on, as he has a part in this he probably won't like. If it's about their swords, they can have them. All but the Kiba blades. I keep those. That surprised Tsunade, a fact she didn't hide. How'd you know? Why are you okay with it, and why keep the Kiba blades? How'd I know? I'm smart. Tsunade and Jiraiya both rolled their eyes. Why I don't care to give them up is simple. All those swords are gimmicky bullshit no real swordsman needs. They'll get a few promising ninja killed trying to master them. As for why I'm keeping the Kiba, I have two reasons. First, because fuck Kaiga. Secondly, Kiri was involved in the sacking of Azushio, so this is reparations, which is way less than I could demand and extract. That's fine. You two can leave early tomorrow. With nothing left to be said, Katsuyu dispelled in both locations. Tsunade resolved to do something special for the couple for ruining their honeymoon. Unbeknownst to Tsunade, her oldest friend had no intention of waiting to be made whole, planning to take matters into her own capable hands. Naruto sensed the mood had shifted even before she began to speak. 5 days. That is what I was promised. 5 days alone with you, she said, body rigid. Naruto approached her, taking her into his arms. I know, I'm disappointed too. Well, someone has to pay for this, Orochi said, her hands out of view. Naruto couldn't tell she'd been holding something since he approached her. Naruto couldn't respond before he felt the needle in his neck, the pen injector going into effect and everything going black. Sometime later, Naruto awoke. He had no sense for how long he'd been out and everything still felt really fuzzy. Even with his impaired senses he knew a few things. He was naked, his wrists were bound, and lastly, he was sporting a major hard O. Kikuku, it seems I timed that just right, Naruto heard. He tried to get up, but the bindings on his wrists responded equally to any force he exerted. It was impressive seal work. Another revelation occurred when Orochi climbed on top of him, his body extremely sensitive to touch. What's all this about, Orochi-chan? Naruto asked, her face just a breath from his. Oh, just a little something I created in case you'd been in need of convincing regarding the viability of our relationship. I've proven I don't. Ah, you have, but my concoction has other uses, she stated. It was taking all the control she had not to simply indulge. Her maelstrom was under her complete control. She gently rubbed his whiskered cheeks as he leaned into her. You may recall when you revealed your ability with the sub-elements, I stated if you were older I'd have taken you right there until you begged for mercy twice. I remember. Then you may also remember you confidently stating you'd never begged for anything a day in your life. I seek to test your resolve. You're being very bad right now, Orochi-chan. Naruto was answered with a kiss, the sensation almost overwhelming and intoxicating. He wreathed against his restraint, but to no avail. He longed for further contact when Orochi broke away. And I'm sure punishment is forthcoming, so I might as well enjoy myself, she said with a predatory grin. Kiri, as far as Orochi was concerned, was a hole. A dreary, unpleasant hole. Tsunade owed her big for this. If it were anyone else, she'd probably consider kidnapping the youngest relative and going to work in her lab. She wouldn't do it, of course. Her maelstrom might tolerate a lot, but that would certainly cross a line. Still, she'd have to consider it because Kiri was that much of a hole. Speaking of her maelstrom, he wasn't exactly helping matters. They traveled via Kamui and he instantly slipped into mission mode. That was fine, he wasn't humorless or anything, and it was fun getting him to break and having to hastily recover his mask of professionalism. Though, it certainly wasn't as fun as what they had been doing last night. She knew she almost had him when he entered Sage mode to get out of her restraints, overpowering them with ease. And true to his word, punishment had been forthcoming, which was fine as she'd been a bad girl. Letting go of her digression, the problem started when the escorts arrived. Kiri ninja generally came in two varieties, bloodthirsty or dead. She was fine with that. But the squad sent for them were twitchy and cowardly, also something she'd be fine with except they weren't afraid of her. It, initially, amused her and Naruto was unprepared for it but quickly came to see their jumpiness as a potential threat. Scared people that have had their flight and freeze responses drilled out of them will fight. Or lash out like cornered animals. She reasoned having such people around her, even if she were perfectly fine to defend herself, triggered something in him. All sense of fun and ease were gone as he recognized multiple, potential, targets. Not threats, mind you, but receptacles for his violence should the need arise. So, he was serious and silent, which left her bored. Normally, she'd just say she was bored and they'd find something to do, usually sex or jutsu theory or sexy jutsu theory, but he was being a papa bear so her boredom was a lower concern at the moment. Which led her to the conclusion that Kiri was a hole. At least they were in the village proper now, and the scared contingent relaxed. It amused her to think they assumed they were safer because they were surrounded by more of their comrades. They took the main path to the Mizukage Tower. Orochi felt they were being paraded about like a pair of exotic animals, and given they seemed to catch the attention of every nearby ninja, she could be forgiven for believing such. Fortunately, they arrived at their final destination in short order and she stood in front of the Mizukage, who requested an additional chair after seeing the clearly pregnant Uzumaki matriarch, Naruto just standing beside her. Welcome to Kirigakure, Uzumaki Dono, Mei greeted. And you too, Naruto-kun, her voice with a tinge of sultriness when addressing him, something that didn't go unnoticed by all present. Thank you for receiving us so warmly, Mizukage-sama, Naruto replied. Soon, he excused himself and waited outside the office for a little over an hour as the talks took place. When Orochi exited the office, the two were escorted to a guest room and left alone. Naruto generated a privacy barrier just in case the room was bugged. The suite, decorated with colors reminiscent of Konoha's autumn leaves, was well adorned and comfortable. The two moved to the couch, Orochi placing her head in Naruto's lap. How did the talks go? Waste of time. We won't be reaching a deal. Oh. Why? There is still some unrest here. A segment of people actually prefer the isolationist, bloody mist days. Enough where she can't treaty with us without jeopardizing her position. That is unfortunate. And nothing can be done. Kikuku, if we could remove a trio of elders who are causing the most trouble and have the most political power, then sure, she'd consider it. But it'd have to in no way appear to be an assassination. Naruto squinted at that. Ninja don't just die by accident, especially not three around the same time. Even if it were to happen, no one would believe it. Why would she even request this? To see how desperate Tsunade was to make a deal. By even briefly considering it, I'd have broadcasted weakness. Outright refusal shows this is something Tsunade would like to happen but not necessary. And had I said yes, assuming it were possible, the Mizukage would have us compromised for the duration of her reign. Though, had she continued to flirt with you, hers would be the shortest tenure of any Kage in history. Naruto merely grunted, not exactly appreciating the Mizukage's actions. Well, we can depart soon enough and have little to nothing to do with Mei Terumi. Kikuku, good. I find this village insipid. I've been bored since we arrived. Naruto raised a single eyebrow as he looked down at his wife. Really? Really? And what should we do about that? I don't want an international incident because you aren't properly stimulated. Orochimaru hummed as she thought before reaching an idea. The task the Mizukage wanted to assign us, could you do it, and if so, how? Naruto chuckled at the question. Yes, I could. The how, that's a little longer of an explanation. Lucky for you, I'm not going anywhere. Okay, the short answer is genjutsu. There are some things we can assume about older ninja that have likely seen at least one shinobi world war and one civil war. They drink. The presence of alcohol can turn a simple argument into a brawl, and uninhibited ninja fighting will lead to fatalities. The best way to keep it from looking like a job is by making it look like something no one would question. I follow, but I assume there's more. Naruto smiled as he answered, yep. So to backtrack a bit, I know I said genjutsu, but that's for lack of a better term. What do you mean? Orochi asked, obviously intrigued. I'm of the opinion, and Kurenai-sensei agrees with me, that genjutsu is an incomplete art. That the difficulty in wielding it with any proficiency has left the discipline undertheorized and therefore still in its adolescence as far as development. Just think about it, the Nara and the Yamanaka both utilize yin release techniques and neither require the disruption of the chakra system nor the existence of a chakra system to work. So why is genjutsu, arguably the purest expression of yin release, stuck with such a limitation? Orochi was now sitting up, enthralled in the argument. It did make sense. There were Sharingan genjutsu that could bypass that necessity, but they eluded her, for now, and while the Sharingan gave advantages over others, it didn't mean the feats couldn't be replicated. So, you've been trying to develop illusions that don't require disrupting the chakra system. That would make them more difficult to dispel. Yes, but not just illusions. I know we call them genjutsu, but at their essence they are a manipulation of sensory organs, and often for the sake of an emotional response, fear, distress, heartbreak. But what if you wanted the latter without requiring the former? You could make 3 drunks become agitated or aggressive without it seeming unnatural to any onlookers. And you can do that. Not quite. While working on a technique that would make people turn on their comrades by mistaking them for enemies, I did get better at triggering aggression. That I can do without the overarching illusion, and the effect would be pretty weak. But if they are already intoxicated, they become more susceptible to the manipulation, and since there would be no other signs of genjutsu, no one would suspect outside interference. Orochi slid into Naruto's lap, straddling him with a smirk on her lips. You know, Naruto-kun, I've been distracted by other projects, but I'm starting to think my rival is getting too far ahead of me. Naruto ran his hands up her thighs and let them rest at her waist. You know, since we're married and having a kid and all, we don't have to be rivals. We could probably get just as much done as partners. Colleagues, she whispered in his ear. Associates and the like, Naruto followed up. Kikuku, that's all well and good, Naruto-kun, but I see a flaw in your proposal. And what's that? He asked. If we're always working together, then, at best, I'd be seen as your equal, and I don't play to tie. Orochi soon found herself on her back, Naruto over her looking down. I say this with all humility, Orochi-chan, being considered equal to me will soon be a pretty big deal. I do not disagree, so just imagine the acclaim for when I make you admit I am superior. Naruto smiled at her statement and kissed her in response. Orochi returned the gesture, but soon broke apart as she sensed someone coming, and was proven right by the knock at the door. Another team of shinobi had delivered the Mizukage's official response and were there to escort the couple out of the village. Once they'd left the village, and seeing as they had some time to kill, Naruto suggested they go to Nami. They weren't that far, and he did have a bridge named after him. He noted, internally, that Orochi got a little weird as she declined, but all but demanded he visit the small nation. A quick flight later and Naruto had touched down on the location of one of his more significant missions. The once impoverished village had seen a turnaround, signs that trade had picked up and they'd managed to remain relatively secure. Naruto was planning to head to a tavern or food stand when Kurama demanded he go to the nearest dock. It was strange, but if Kurama wanted to see a sunset, Naruto wasn't going to fight him on it. He shunshed to the location and began to walk to the edge, but stopped in his tracks. He couldn't be sure of what he was seeing. Sure, it was longer, but no one had a shade, but why here? Out of anywhere. Did Orochi know? Naruto shook off the string of questions and continued toward the edge of the dock. He silently sat next to the person who had already been sitting there. One look and he knew, one look was all he needed. The smile on his face was so wide it likely looked unnatural, and if people mistook for an idiot he wouldn't fault them, nor would he care. His companion, also wearing a smile, much smaller and with a hint of sadness. She briefly looked down and a curtain of midnight blue hair separated them, but it ended as swiftly as it had begun. Impressively, and against their pattern, she was the first to speak. Naruto-kun, was all she said, but the greeting contained multitudes. Hinata. Death suits you. Hinata laughed lightly as she gripped the arm of her dear friend, both sitting on the dock looking out to the ocean. She almost didn't believe he was here, and the surroundings were so picturesque she could be forgiven for thinking this was a figment of her imagination, her mind fulfilling the longing for the price she paid for her freedom. It didn't have to be him, it could have been Hanabi-chan or one of her teammates. She missed them all and sometimes wished there was a version of her that could have been true to herself and remained in the village. Konoha was stifling. The Hyuga were restrictive. She could barely breathe, and serving Orochimaru had hardly been a significant burden compared to the demands of being an heiress and daughter to a broken man too proud to admit it. She needed to be unshackled, but it was an exchange, one whose consequences stayed with her daily. She wasn't unhappy, quite the opposite, but she still missed those she'd come to care for, and the lonely boy that could will himself to do the impossible would always have a special place in her heart. She discreetly noticed the ring on his finger, so didn't need to ask about his status. She had one, that was clear. But he wasn't shocked to see her alive, so she must have divulged the deal, which didn't sound like the Orochimaru she knew. Not that she could claim to be an expert on the woman. I didn't take you as one for gallows humor, Naruto-kun, Hinata observed after her moment of contemplation. He beamed at her, that blinding smile that could melt all but the most ardently unreasonable, which included most of Konoha to Hinata's mind. I have my moments, but you do look good, Hinata, lighter. A part of me thought you'd be angry, all of you would if you knew. I can't speak for the others, their relationship to the village is so different from mine, but I understand needing to leave. I almost did, several times. How could I fault you for doing the same? She squeezed his arm a little more. She hadn't been looking for absolution, but his words still moved her. Theirs was an odd friendship, so short and yet they seemed to get each other. In another life, who knows what that could have become. You seem happier, too, Hinata responded, and he nodded as he wore a goofy smile. Orochi-chan and I were supposed to be on our honeymoon but got called away, and I'm going to be a dad soon. How cool is that? And I have a goddaughter, Mirai-chan. Well, Shika, Shino and I all share godfather duties, but I'm going to be the favorite. Kurenai-sensei keeps forbidding me from teaching her high-level techniques too soon, as if I'd have her whipping S-rank genjutsu at 9 or something, Naruto rambled. Hinata quirked her brow as she'd seen how he trained himself, and he was not one for restraint, which she pointed out. Naruto laughed and scratched the back of his head but couldn't deny the charge. He shared stories of his travels with Jiraiya, of his time back in the village, and most importantly, at least to Hinata, that he'd be assigned to Hanabi as her elite trainer. My father is allowing this? She asked in genuine shock. Unless Hanabi has an alternate means of earning money, I'm pretty sure he's doing more than allowing it, 'cause I don't come cheap, Naruto joked. Anyway, yes, he's supporting Hanabi's ambitions. Losing you changed him, and the guilt is making him proactive. Guilt? Hinata asked. She may have a low opinion of Hiashi, but not so much to erase his humanity entirely, but she hadn't expected he'd feel guilty. She figured he'd see it as proof he was right. Yay. I won't claim to understand him to any significant degree, but I think people become so unaware of the limits of the status quo that any deviation feels like a grand rebellion, so they try to stop it, especially in their children. But when you lose that child, you realize the real earth-shaking change isn't them being different from what you expect, but them no longer being there. In the two people I've seen this in, they were both fathers mourning the loss of daughters and kicking themselves for learning their lessons too late. So, he can finally change after he thinks I'm dead. What am I supposed to do with that? She asked heatedly. No idea, Naruto answered honestly. I've had many people try to advise me on how I should feel about the village, about the Sandaime, about my life. They all meant well but could only understand my perspective so much. If how you feel doesn't blind you to everything else, then it really isn't anyone's business. He gaslit me for most of my childhood. Without the outside training I received, I would have believed I was worthless. I'm happy Hanabi-chan won't have to endure that, but I can't forgive him for being a bastard when I needed my father. Naruto said nothing as he leaned into her. Not liking the shift in mood, Hinata resolved to change it and the subject. She found it easy as she recalled an important detail he shared. Boy or girl? She asked. Dunno yet, I have to wait a few more weeks and it has been torture, he said dramatically. Poor thing, Hinata said as he chuckled. Do you have a preference? Not strongly, but if I had to pick I think I'd want a girl, he answered, surprising Hinata. A fact she admitted to. I thought all men wanted sons for their legacies and to carry the names forward. Seems like a lot of weight to put on a child, Naruto said, and Hinata could tell for the briefest moment he was somewhere else, a place she couldn't reach. It felt inappropriate to ask. The question was one only the closest of friends could pose without offense. She wasn't that, not anymore. I think I'd rather just let my legacy be my work and deeds and let my kid create their own, whatever it may be. That sounds nice, Naruto-kun. It really does. How'd you wind up in Nami? Naruto asked, shifting topics again. Oh. Well, long story short is that while my freedom is great, I started getting bored, so after leaving Oto I took up bounty hunting. How was it? Lucrative, but with my Byakugan and archery skills it's sorta like cheating for anyone below a mid-rank threat. Fair fights are for losers anyway. Naruto held his first out and Hinata dapped it. Anyway, while wandering I heard about the bridge with the most familiar name and decided to visit the people who would name a landmark after you. There were endless stories about the tiny redhead with the heart of a lion, facing off against Gato and his army of thugs. The bridge builder's grandson idolizes you. The bridge builder, not so much, Hinata joked. He's probably still a little raw about my almost killing him. You'd be amazed at how personally civilians take that. It's almost as if they don't endure it often. Bunch of chumps, Naruto quipped. Wimps, Hinata added. Her companion's laughter warmed her soul. You should stop staring at me, it's bad for the baby, Tsunade said to her best friend. She knew the woman was mad, understood why, but it was necessary, and being glared at wouldn't resolve anything. However, her words had zero effect, so the two women continued to stare at each other, both recognizing it had moved past an expression of annoyance and settled into a juvenile challenge between the leader of the village and an expectant mother. Tsunade blinked first and saw a flash of a smile. You sent me to Kiri and I had to waste time with that insufferable trollop for no reason. You know where I was yesterday. On your honeymoon, Tsunade replied. On a private beach. Sun, sand, waves, the whole bit. Do you know what Kiri has? A large collective of people you'd never want oral sex from. The god I'm asked but was ignored by the snake summoner. Missed. And worse still, Kiri Ninja. You know how I feel about Kiri Ninja, Tsunade-chan. It was necessary, the Hokage justified. It was necessary, Orochimaru mocked, which surprised Tsunade as that was not her brand of humor. Her reaction was noticed by Orochimaru. Blame the baby, she said. Orochi then explained why the negotiations failed. Tsunade agreed with her fellow Sanin's decision, as she'd never allow herself to be that compromised by a rival village. She couldn't have expected you'd actually take the job. Maybe she wanted to stay neutral but wanted us to refuse so there would be no hard feelings, Tsunade tried to reason. It made a certain amount of sense, and if Kiri were neutral that was better than the alternative. Oh, she'd have likely agreed to anything if I'd let her have a run at Naruto. Auburn-haired whore, Orochi spat. I mean, for the good of the village maybe. Don't finish that sentence, Tsunade. Okay. It was just a joke. We'll consider the Kiri matter settled pending new information. Where is Naruto, by the way? Nami. Why? He went to see about a bridge, Orochi answered. Tsunade waited for additional information but it never came. Orochi took it upon herself to press on. I want your authorization to create some contingencies for when Iwa and Kumo betray us. What kind of contingencies? Tsunade asked. She didn't know why she asked the question when she knew the answer. Maybe she was hoping Orochi would buy into her attempt at peace, to accomplish something not even her grandfather could achieve. Things cannot remain as they are, Orochi replied. He unleashed the spirit of revolution amongst his ninja. They no longer dream of a world where Konoha is defeated but one where we do not exist. Onoki waits and plans, but even the fence-sitter can see what you refuse to accept. The age of the Gokage is coming to an end. And I won't accept it. The 3 wars previous were bloody enough, and what you're suggesting, Tsunade didn't finish her thought, but she knew her fellow Sanin took her meaning. A war that required total victory to end would only produce losers. Severely weakened, the smaller villages would pick him off unless they were forced to take sides from the start. Death on a scale no living ninja has ever seen. You assume you'll have a choice in the matter. Fate is rarely so kind, Tsunade-chan. Fate can go fuck itself, then. A war waged due to a deadman's obsession, I refuse. It amazes me that I understand people better than you. There is not one person that enters a shinobi academy that doesn't dream of being greater than they ever thought possible. Most don't achieve it, they settle in the middle, and yet still brimming within them is a piece of divinity. I, too, once felt imprisoned by my own limitations and sought to ruthlessly free myself from them. To be an agent of change that could direct the course of history. No matter how much you want to, no matter how much you hate it, you cannot stop what's coming. Nor, it should be said, can you blunt its aftermath. Foolishness and empty ambitions will damn us all. Is that what you're telling me? Tsunade said in defeated acceptance. It was uncomfortable how small it felt. A conflict not spurred by having too little but for the sake of having more. Change is natural, Tsunade-chan. We've stood in the way of it for 100 years, but it was always a losing battle. If you refuse to embrace change, then you will be damned. If you accept it, then who knows, but you don't believe Darui and Onoki will abide by that treaty, so what's the harm in being prepared? I can leave yo. No, I'm not sensei. If you're doing this for Konoha, then I'll be aware of every step. Just, whatever we come up with, we only target enemy combatants. Almost anything else can be discussed, but that is mandatory. Kikuku, I can work with that. You have thoroughly ruined my mood, Orochi-chan, and since that brat knocked you up, you can't even drink with me. Blah, the god, I'm complained. Don't be so mean, Tsunade-chan, Orochi said, projecting pure innocence. Blah. Hinta clung tightly to their shared embrace. They shared stories and laughs and a silence too comfortable, and to her mind, too intimate for something they could never be. The signs had been clear, her time with Naruto was coming to an end. It was selfish of her to wish for more time. But Hinata had long come to the conclusion she was selfish. Faking her death, leaving the heiress position for Hanabi, the long letter she wrote to Naruto had all been selfish acts. She wanted freedom, a clear conscience, and to not be forgotten. She still recalled what she wrote, apologizing for not only spying but greedily borrowing his strength without ever giving anything in return. Even as a child, lonely but driven, he was an example for her. He managed the impossible, and it made her believe she could achieve the improbable. When she doubted herself, doubted working for Orochimaru, it wouldn't be long before Naruto did something to restore her faith. He deserved more than her guilt-ridden ramblings, but as she believed that would be their last communication, it was all she had. And yet, fortune smiled upon her, and now her dear friend was in her arms. The kunai he'd gifted her, the significance apparent to her before he promised he'd be there for her if she ever needed him, was another boon born of her greediness. That the wrong thing kept netting her what she wanted made Hinata wonder if that's how Orochimaru got started. Hey, you okay? She heard Naruto ask, and she didn't know how to answer it. She loved her freedom but missed Hanabi and her friends dearly. She wished life didn't take more than it gave, she wished things could have been different. A reality where she found a place in the village, kept with her friends, and watched Hanabi grow. Just lamenting wasted time, we could have been friends much sooner if I'd done things differently, her response earned a chuckle. You know, there were days where I got so frustrated with my lack of progress, or the loneliness became deafening, and I just wanted to quit. But, I don't know, I just always got this feeling someone was watching over me, maybe even pulling for me, and now knowing what I know, I'd like to think that person was you. I guess what I'm saying is, Shika and Shino are my best friends, but I think you were my first, even if no one understands it but us. I'm alright with that. It was Hinata's turn to laugh as she fought back tears. I'm alright with that, too. I will kill you. Jiraiya appeared confused, though not actually threatened by his fellow Sanin's words. Karen and Tayuya couldn't fault the man, as while somewhat condescending, the statement was otherwise innocuous. What Jiraiya couldn't know, having just returned to the manor, was Orochimaru was in a bit of a mood. The two Uzumaki knew the warning signs, but when she demanded, in a clipped tone no less, that Naruto go shower and change because he reeked of her, they knew they had to tread lightly. Jiraiya knew none of this, but both doubted it would have mattered. He didn't seem the type to walk on eggshells. Because I'm surprised you can cook. Isn't that an overreaction? An extreme overreaction? He asked across the island. Stab you in your liver. Quarter turn forward, quarter turn back, quarter turn forward and pull. Then, you'll be dead. Orochi said as she continued to thinly slice daikon for pickling. Naruto would save me, I'm his beloved godfather. He's in the shower and I'd burn your body. Fire suppressant seals would prevent that, Jiraiya pointed out. Then I'd drag your corpse out back and do it there, she spat as the grip on her knife tightened. And risk Naruto's garden. Don't think so, the Toad Sage said with a knowing smirk. To the surprise of Karen and Tayuya, it didn't seem to annoy Orochi or anger her further as she continued. I'll feed you to Manda. He doesn't actually eat people. He'd make an exception. For meat this tough. Doubt it. Pocket dimension. I'll put you in a pocket dimension, Orochi responded as she laid her knife against the cutting board and exited the kitchen. The three that remained were quiet until she was out of earshot, but once it was safe, Jiraiya laughed. When he saw the confusion on their faces, he laughed more before explaining. With Tsunade, you let her explode. It'll be violent, but it'll be quick. With Orochi, you give her something to churn at so she can work through how she's feeling. Either way, tiptoeing around them won't do you any good because neither is great at self-soothing, so they'll just stay mad. You're pretty smart for an old fuck, Tayuya complimented. Orochi arrived at her room just as Naruto was exiting their bathroom, towel wrapped around his waist. He smiled at her as he sat on the bed. She sat beside him and breathed in, delighted that her former subordinate's taint had been removed. She didn't like him smelling of another woman, especially not that one in particular. She was fond of Hinata, all told, but knew the girl was capable of getting ideas in her head. For the record, it was a hug, Naruto said. Orochi looked at him in disbelief. Did she hug you for the entire time you were there? He laughed as he scratched the back of his head, a tell he hadn't rid himself of. She narrowed her eyes but softened them just as fast. She knows her husband, knows he isn't fickle nor easily swayed. She inched closer, the chill from having recently exited the shower rapidly being replaced by his natural warmth. I'm frustrated, she admitted. Today has been a study in aggravation. That's understandable, he said. We should still be on the beach, our only worries being what we were going to do for the day. Sounds nice, she admitted. We'll have to go back someday. Oh shit, he exclaimed. It was supposed to be a surprise, but we can totally go back whenever we want since we own it. I had a whole thing planned, but, yay, we own a small island near Moon Country. Even for you that'd be prohibitively expensive, Naruto-kun. It would be if I'd paid for it, but the king gave it to me for saving his and his son's life. Between the two, I couldn't tell you which was more of a petulant brat. I feel like there's a story here, she said, but Naruto shook his head. Honestly, not really. Jiraiya was getting obnoxious about needing a break, so we went to Moon Country for a little respite. I uncovered a plot to overthrow the king. It wasn't even that involved, it took me like an afternoon. Instead of fleeing, the conspirators tried to attack me, so I cut them down. All but the leader. Jiraiya half-drunkenly hit the leader with a Rasengan, so got mutual credit for my work. Didn't even kill the guy. Can you imagine? Hitting someone with a Rasengan and they freaking live, shameful ass pervert. And the man was so trifling he accepted it. Anyway, Jiraiya wanted something or other, I didn't pay attention as I was too annoyed, but when the king asked me what I wanted I picked the island. He agreed as long as I didn't build a hotel on it. I don't think I'd believe that if it were told by anyone else. Naruto shrugged, he couldn't disagree. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. Ha, he replied, intelligently. I was short with you when you returned, she explained. Oh, it's fine, Kurenai-sensei said your senses would be heightened. Who could be polite with a sudden bout of nausea? Orochi smiled, the last of her annoyance melting away. When Naruto stood up, presumably to get dressed, she grabbed his towel and pulled him back to bed, making him fall to his back. She swiftly mounted him and brought her face down to his. My problem with smelling Hinata on you had nothing to do with heightened senses, Naruto-kun. She did not expect him to chuckle and certainly hadn't predicted his response. I know, he said, his smile equal parts amusement and pride of having gotten one over on her. I'm going to get you back, she whispered, only causing his smile to widen. You promise? He asked in faux innocence. No one was surprised when the couple didn't come down for dinner until an hour later. 4 months later. Quickly but discreetly start moving the civilians and Genin to the shelters, Darui ordered. Hi, answered Mabui as she departed in a shunshin. The Raikage Tower was a flood in action, finely trained and well-honed ninja almost slipping into chaos. Plans were hastily being drawn and discarded. His spec. Ops. Commander busily trying to find the right protection detail for Daru's journey and back in the office. And through the storm of activity, Darui had to project a calm he was not feeling. In his Raikage robes, he strode through the village. One reason, to give his people confidence that nothing was wrong. Second reason, to give his ninja time. Time to collective themselves, time to prepare for the trial ahead. A third reason, to buttress his resolve. As countless people greeted him, Darui remembered why he'd done this. For so long, he'd felt out of step with his comrades and former leader. Whereas they thought A had the right idea but the wrong execution, he firmly believed both were mistaken. But A, for all his faults, knew how to inflame the passions of his people. He played to their pride. He crafted a narrative. He promised them more. They were proud warriors long denied victory, conquerors long denied conquest. A cage ruled absolutely, but he still needed the consent of his people, and as much as Darui wanted to cease the path they were on, he knew it would have eroded his support. Without Kiribi and Yugito, they needed to be a united front. Steadfast. Resolute. It meant he had to go against himself. He had to embrace the losses that were coming. He had to trust Onoki, something he was loath to do. Most of all, he had to spin Konoha as the bane of their existence. The reason they hadn't reached their long-promised glory. Darui wondered what Kumo's hostility toward Konoha must look like from the Hidden Leaf's perspective. The Sandaime Hokage really wanted to build bonds and work together, something A hadn't seen the value in until late in life and something A would have never considered. Tsunade was less ambitious but more realistic. Her aims could be summarized as, just leave us the fuck alone, sheesh, but the antipathy was bone deep. One ninja had come face to face with the AB tag team and allowed him to leave in one piece. One man had stood above a killer of 20,000 ninja over a 3-day period. Konoha's existence mocked Kumo, their victories, their prodigies, their lush surroundings. Most every Kumo ninja found the Hidden Leaf offensive. They shared stories of a village too solicitous of their civilians. Too soft, barely functioning like a military installation. They weren't ninja in the right way and yet they were always saved by their prodigies. It was no secret that every hidden village thought Konoha was top-heavy, but on a ninja-to-ninja basis, Iwa and Kumo produced superior results. Darui hadn't shared that opinion, or felt it moot, but culture wouldn't be changed in a day. Reikage-sama. He heard a young voice call out and he waved at the young resident while he sensed his protection team coalesce around him. The crispness of the air and the brilliance of the sun briefly entered his mind. Kumo was hard, but it was beautiful and it was his to protect. He made his final approach to the front gate, dozens of Junin and Black Ops, ninja hiding, tense but disciplined as the gate guards stood confused. Darui walked past them and welcomed their visitor. You honor us with your presence, Uzumaki Naruto-san. Yo, 9-0 brought back the mighty 8 and missed 2, fool ya fool, Kiribi said from the Konoha Jinchuriki's back. Darui wondered why Kiribi hadn't taken the initiative to stab the boy in the back and save them all some trouble. He looked at the Uzumaki's attire, white pants and shirt with a red obi around his waist. A long-sleeved, white haori but no weapons visible and seemingly no armor. It was a bold, foolish choice. So, I see, Darui responded. And what has motivated such a show of goodwill? Godime-sama called me to her office and said, Naruto, you, being of unparalleled temperament and discernment, go close our negotiations with Kumo and get a treaty signed. And being the loyal and obedient ninja I am, have come to do just that. I think you'll be amazed at what two people in a room can accomplish. Well, Kumo welcomes you. If you would follow me to my office. The Uzumaki followed along. Darui knew Kumo's best fuinjutsu artists would check over Kiribi and Yugito to make sure there were no seals on them. He would need them to be combat ready. There was no way he could allow the red-haired shinobi to leave Kumo alive. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.